Hi, I'm Suzie Boss here at the last day of an amazing week of PBL World, and I'm with Jaime Casap, who just keynoted and is the Global Education Evangelist for Google. So, Jaime, tell us a little about your backstory. You shared some personal stories about why education matters so much for you.
Yeah, so I as I mentioned before, and I always kind of kick this off with this kind of story because I think it's important to see where people are coming from. And for me, education is very personal, right? Education was my silver bullet, like it was for millions of us who grew up the way I grew up, right? So I'm a first generation American, first with my family to go to college. I grew up in Hell's Kitchen, New York, in not the nicest environment in the world. And because I got my high school degree, because I was able to go to college because I went to graduate school, I can sit here and talk to you. So kind of my mission or my mantra, if you will, is how do we provide this? How do we expand this for millions and millions of students around the world? And for me, especially for kids who are growing up the way I grew up.
And so if you can look back in hindsight, were there any particular people who helped you along your way? Experiences that, a lot of kids don't get to the successes that you've enjoyed.
Yeah, well, so I think, and I talk about this sometimes, the idea that I've had some very influential people in my life, and I've met some unbelievable people. Like, I played ping pong with Vince Cerf, who created the internet, right? So I've had some amazing mentors and people in my life, but 40 years later, it's still my fourth grade teacher who taught me how to write, because I wasn't writing. I was speaking two different languages, and writing was not my strong suit, and so she just helped me write. Or my sixth grade teacher, who saw creativity in me that I most sixth graders don't know, that she helped me expand that. Or my ninth grade teacher, who showed me math in a completely different way, right? It was, I had no idea what math was, and then I had math with this teacher in ninth grade. And it was like he brought me inside the matrix. It's like the red pill, the blue pill, and I took whatever the one that gets you into the matrix, the red pill. And I took the red pill, and he brought me inside the matrix of math. And math is, for me, it's always been a pattern. And those are the influential people in my life. So, and all students like me have those stories, that have those adults. So that's absolutely critical. So, as I said in the keynote, at the end of the day, I'm obviously an advocate for technology and the use of technology as an enabling and supporting capability. But at the end of the day, it's the teacher that's the most important aspect of education for a student.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just a powerful message that, I think we can't hear enough. So, excuse me, at one point in your remarks this morning, you talked about living in a PBL world. Google is a project-based company. Right. Could you say a little more about that?
Yes. I talk about how education is set up as a single-player sport, right? And that's just the way we set it up. It's individuals it's my 14-year-old who gets homework, my 14-year-old who gets assignments, it's my 14-year-old who takes a test, it's my 14-year-old who does all those things. He might work on groups projects, but it ends up being the misery that most people feel when they work on group projects, which is an assignment that one person can do, split up among 4 or 5 people to go fight it out, right? And that's what most schools think of project-based learning when they think about project-based learning, and that's not what it is at all, right? Yeah. Real collaboration is what we need, because we live in a collaborative world, and Google is just one of hundreds of thousands of examples of companies where that's true, right? Whether it's companies, nonprofits, government, we work in a collaborative world, and so how do we teach kids real collaboration skills, that how they ask questions, how they listen, how they push back, how they debate, how they argue, and how they change their mind, and then how to build consensus. And those are the things that we really need to focus on. And project-based learning is the way the world works, right? It's the Margaret, what's her name, Mead quote, never underestimate the power of a small group of dedicated citizens to change the world. Why? Because it's the only thing it ever has, right? And it's not, never underestimate the one person. It's always about a group of people.
Yeah. So what taught you to collaborate? How did you learn those, get your chops?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's one of those things that just kind of happened where, I graduated. So actually right from my professional career. So I graduated graduate school. I went to work for Governor Cuomo, and I was part of a team in New York State, part of a team. It was the Department of Labor, Department of Education, Department of Social Services, the governor's office, a couple other groups, we were doing welfare reform, but it was the first time those groups ever came together, right? And so right from the beginning of my career, this idea that to solve a problem, it's not one group or one department, it's a collaboration effort between different organizations. And it's frightening, to be honest with you, to think that in the 40 years that we had welfare in New York State, that this was the first time that the Department of Labor and the Department of Social Services actually sat in the same room, right?
And having to talk the same language,
right?
And they don't necessarily,
right? And so that's where I learned it from. And then I worked at Accenture for 6 years, and Accenture is all about the teams that you build, right? It wasn't about individual performance. It was about putting really good teams together. Back, the Jim Collins, get the right people in the bus scenario, right? It's finding the right people that bring a skill set. One of my favorite movies of all time, that I teach classes at ASU, I use Miracle. Have you ever seen the movie, the Disney movie Miracle?
About
the hockey team.
Yes, of course.
Watch that from a different perspective. Watch that from a Jim Collins project-based learning perspective, which is you put a team together. It might not be the most talented team, or it might not be all the superstars, but it's a team that works together really well, and that's why they won, because they were collaborating. They were doing things in a different way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so in project-based learning, one of the situations that teachers often face is needing to connect their kids or help their kids connect themselves to people who are experts in different fields. The whole message is the teacher doesn't have all the answers. Answers are out there if you can connect and use technology to do that. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but is Google the kind of company that would encourage its employees to be experts for projects?
Yeah, so it's funny. There's an internal joke where you can't say this isn't rocket science. You hear that phrase all the time. You can't say that at Google because there's a good chance that there's actually a rocket scientist in the room when you say it, right? So I think I don't know if this is true anymore. So don't fact check me on this, but Google at one point, I remember in my 9 years that I've been there, hired more PhDs than anyone else, right? And so, not that a PhD makes you an expert, but we wanted to bring experts in different areas to do that. And so even it doesn't matter what the topic area is, we try to find the best. And when we can't hire them, we partner with them, right? And so you see Google partnerships with a whole bunch of different organizations to bring that expertise in. And we also do, by the way, we do what we call tech talks at Google. And so I had Michael Horn, for example. He came in and did a tech talk at Google to talk about his book, Blended. And so we bring in experts. And so every week there's a list of speakers that are speaking at Google. And so we have experts there all the time. It's amazing.
So you bring experts in, but could classes, teachers connect with Google?
Yeah, so we just announced a couple of different initiatives in time for ISTE. One is the Learning Center that we launched today, as a matter of fact. And yesterday we launched a bunch of new programs for teachers to be able to collaborate with each other, to collaborate with us. One thing that most people don't realize is, like, if you are a teacher using Classroom and you have feedback, and you have ideas on how to make it better or what's working, what's not working, if you go into the feedback button and click on that and provide feedback, it doesn't go into a black hole. Jen Miller is actually reading those. She reads all those posts and takes those to the engineering team. So we're always looking to collaborate with teachers.
That's fantastic. Okay. And maybe you could just give us, since you have such a broad perspective on what's happening in education around the world, kind of what you're excited about. You gave us a little hint of an interesting project. Academy. You want to tell us about that?
So I think this is the most exciting time in history, right? When it comes in education, because we're starting to take advantage of the fact that we have all the world's information literally at our fingertips. And what does that mean to learning? What does that look like? How do people collaborate? This idea that this generation of students is different than we are is not true, right? They're exactly like we are, except they live in a different world. How they think about learning is different than the way we think about learning. And so, one of the projects that I'm working on is with Phoenix Union School District. We're part of a team. We're building a new high school called the Phoenix Code Academy. At least that's the working title that we have for it. And we're launching this school. It'll be an inquiry-based, project-based learning school where programming and computer science becomes the foundation that students learn. So the idea is to graduate, 4 years of basic standard curriculum, but you can program in 1 or 2 different languages, whatever you want to do with that, whether you want to go to college, or whether you want to go work in your mom's shop, or whether you want to go build your own company, whatever that is, you can have that skill set.
It's another fluency.
And it's just another language. It came from literally from a joke once, a couple years ago, where someone asked me, and this is one of those Latino things where someone will ask me, do you want your 14-year-old to speak another language, right? Which is another way of saying, are you teaching your kids Spanish, right? And my response is always like, yes, I want them speaking Python, right? And so that's kind of where it comes from.
Okay, well that's exciting. That's on the horizon. Anything else you can offer us just a little glimmer of kind of what we might be seeing?
Right, so one of the things that I've seen one of the things I'm excited about are those models, whether it's High Tech High, whether it's the Science Leadership Academy in Philadelphia, or whether it's other schools. These models are starting to prove themselves, and people are paying attention. They're not an outlier anymore. They're the way we should be doing things, and I'm starting to see that shift, that trend. And as I said in my talk, we moving away from the conversation of like whether we should be using technology in education to how we use it effectively. And what can we have? Because what I want is, I don't want to take technology and put it on top of our current systems.
Sure.
Because then all we've done is automated and made old systems faster and more efficient, right? We don't want that. We want teachers to use the technology and then ask what's next, right? What else can we do with this? And that's what I'm excited about.
Okay. And then maybe finally you could tell us a little bit about what's coming up at the White House and
so
where that might be going.
Yeah, so I got a call yesterday inviting me to speak at the White House, and I'm really excited about that. But it's a summit that they're putting together in the summer. It's Michelle Obama's, the First Lady's Reach Higher initiative, and they're having a summit to bring kids who are growing up the way I grew up to think about higher education, to think about what's next beyond high school, and to get them to put on their reality distortion glasses, like I talk about, and really shoot for unbelievable potential. And so I'm going to be part of that. So I'm excited about that, and also having a little bit of a panic attack.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to be.
Sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, maybe we'll leave you there.
Yes.
And folks who are following the Ed Tech conversation are going to be hearing more from you at ISTE next week in Philadelphia.
We'll be at ISTE next week, and you'll be at ISTE next week.
Yeah.
Yes,
so.
and I'm an introvert, which is hard for people to believe. And so the day after ISTE is where I literally go into a room, lock the door, and I sit in there for like 3 weeks by myself.
Unplug, a little quiet time.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Well, good luck with all that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking time.
All right,
Great.
thanks. Bye.